the sunset of World War II gets a lot of blame for America's current problems, and some say rightfully so. They are the generation with the most political, cultural, and economic power in the country. But that will change with the oldest boomers now pushing 80 years old. So what happens after the boomers? Joining me to talk about this is Philip Bump. He's a columnist for the Washington Post, and his book, The Aftermath, The Last Days of the Baby Boom and the Future of Power in America, comes out next week. Philip, congratulations and welcome back.
Thank you very much.
And Jill Filipovich is columnist for CNN. Her book is Okay Boomer, Let's Talk, How My Generation Got Left Behind. And of course, we always want to hear from you. You're a member of a generation. What do you think will happen once the next generation, whichever generation that is, takes power? You can tweet us at 1A or just send us an email at 1A@wamu.org. So let me start with you. I was interested to see that your book begins by trying to make somebody like me, I have grown up never knowing a time when there wasn't a baby boomer generation, helping me appreciate just how phenomenally the baby boomer generation changed everything here. Can you just help me understand what impact the size of this generation had?
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard to overstate the scale of the baby boom, particularly relative to the American population at the time. So we entered World War II with this anticipation that perhaps the American population might start to decline. There's a lot of concern both in the United States and elsewhere that was going to be the pattern that emerged. But then we had the baby boom. In 1945, there were about 140 million people living in America. Over the course of the next 19 years, 76 million babies were born, right? So that's more than half of the population prior to the baby boom was then born over the course of 2 decades. And in the abstract, it's like, okay, that's a lot of babies, right? But then you think about how that breaks all of the systems that are in place. You don't have the capacity to educate all those kids. You don't have the capacity to provide resources and services to all those kids. So you start to see this massive economic boom that travels along with the baby boom, right? So you see, for example, diaper companies just become this bonanza business for a period of time, right? Then you see this urgent need to build all sorts of schools. Over the course of the baby boom, Los Angeles County was averaging 1 new school a month, either elementary, middle, or high school. They had to build all these schools. Then you get into they become of adult age, right? So what are you going to do with all these baby boomers? Some of them are going to go into the workplace, but there aren't enough jobs for them. Some of them are going to start going to college more, which is a trend that obviously the baby boom has really kicked off.
Yeah.
There are all these ways in which the boom, as it started to progress through American society in time, reshaped America around it, which I think really set a lot of expectations on the generation.
All right, so Jill, maybe you can talk a little bit about those expectations, because this is a generation which, from the very beginning, held power. When they became teenagers, suddenly in America, teenagers mattered economically. When they became college students, suddenly people were listening to what college students had to say. So how have those expectations of boomers, expecting that they will be heard and cared for and that they will matter, how has that changed things?
It's changed things tremendously. And I don't think that it's a bad thing that boomers who were brought into this world involuntarily, as all of us are, did expect that the world would shape itself to them and would make their entrance into adulthood much easier. I think where my book was primarily about these kind of generational tensions, and I think where the tensions come from is the millennial perspective that while the world shaped itself to boomers, essentially created the entire concept of a teenager, made college much more accessible, college was relatively affordable for boomers, all of the things that Philip identifies in his book. Once boomers came of age and did really take over politics, first as voters and then as electeds in office, a lot of the benefits that they enjoyed that set them up for middle-class lifestyles and success were really pulled up by the roots when millennials were being born and then as we came of age. And so I think some of the resentment between generations comes from this perception, which I think is a fair one, that while boomers enjoyed kind of massive investment in their lives, once they took power, they didn't maintain, and you certainly didn't increase those investments in millennials.
Okay, so Phil, can we talk about who a boomer is, at least statistically speaking? I mean, Gen Z is the most racially and ethnically diverse generation ever. Almost half are not white. But what about the boomers? And when it comes to things not just race, but income, education, religion, what does a boomer look like?
Yeah, this is a really, really important point. And so we're used to generational tensions, right? There's nothing new about younger people and older people, having some tension between them and differences in their own lives. But the baby boom itself is very different than younger Americans, to your point. So the baby boom, for example, emerged at a point in time when immigration was near a low in American history, right? You had this backlash to immigration that occurred about a century ago. Immigration was essentially locked down. The average immigrant in 1946, when the boom began, was somebody's grandparent, someone who immigrated from Europe, decades earlier. After the baby boom ended, then immigration laws were liberalized, and you started to see this increase of people coming from places like Central America, Mexico, Asia, that really reshaped the demography of the United States. So you're exactly right. The baby boom itself is much more centrally white than our younger generations. And so when we talk about how these generations don't look like, that's very literal in some senses, that they don't look like. But at the same time, you have all these other ways in which younger Americans differ from older Americans, particularly the baby boom. They're much better educated. They're less likely to participate in institutions. They're less likely to join political parties. These were trends, actually, that the baby boom hit off. The baby boomers tended to be less interested in institutions, less religious, and so on and so forth than their parents. But those trends continued. And so we have millennials and Gen Z even much less likely to participate in these things. And so there's a different cultural set of values that is oriented around these generations as well. And so there are all these ways in which the baby boom, this isn't just older people looking at younger people and like, oh, these kids today. It is these younger people have a different set of values, a different set of expectations, and in many ways even look different than I do. And that, I think, then exacerbates the tension.
We're talking to Philip Bump, author of The Aftermath, The Last Days of the Baby Boom and the Future of Power in America, and Jill Filipovich. Her book is Okay Boomer, Let's Talk, How My Generation Got Left Behind. Jill, let's talk a little bit about personalities. The boomers were Time Person of the Year. Back then it was called Man of the Year in 1966. And here's what the Time editors wrote. Quote, "Today the young are anything but silent. They make many statements and appear more deeply committed to the fundamental Western ethos, decency, tolerance, and brotherhood than almost any generation since the age of chivalry." I don't think people would describe the baby boomer generation that way anymore. Is it just age?
I don't think it's age. One thing that I found really interesting researching my book is how similar tropes about boomers were when they were coming of age as tropes about millennials are now. I mean, boomers were nicknamed, the me generation, this generation of self-involved narcissists who wanted to go on their, Buddhist escapes in Northern California and, opt out of life, and were also this generation of social activism. And I mean, the truth is, boomers are a very politically divided generation. And I think that divide has really colored the kind of inconsistent narratives about boomers. One way I like to put it is that liberal boomers won the culture, while conservative boomers won the politics. And now that we're seeing the outcome of those conservative boomers winning the politics, that's what's breeding a lot of resentment among millennials and Gen Zers. Whereas liberal boomers, who are roughly half the generation, are saying, well, wait a minute, we were the foot soldiers of the feminist movement and the civil rights movement and the anti-war movement. And boomers were, frankly, the architects of the LGBT rights movement. And so I think those two things are often hard to hold in tandem. That the boomer generation does have these two halves, and both of those halves were incredibly influential in certainly in overlapping spaces. But while the liberal half of the generation really shaped culture, novels, books, social movements, the conservative half of the generation, I think, had more influence on the political realm, certainly today. And that is kind of what lends itself to this sense that boomers now are these, stodgy codgers, while a lot of boomers themselves object to that classification.
In the 30 seconds we have time to answer, Phil, a quick question from Michael on Twitter. Are immigrants considered boomers? My parents were both born in 1960 in a West Indian country that didn't participate in any world wars.
Right. Yeah, technically, right? So when you talk about the baby boomer population in the United States, it actually grew after the baby boom ended because you had people who were of baby boomer age coming into the country. Again, yes, that did lead to an increase in the percentage, for example, of Hispanic Americans who were members of the baby boom, but it didn't obviously have as huge an effect on as the birth of the boomers themselves.
We're talking about what might happen after baby boomers lose their grip on American political power.
This country's
We're
gonna
speaking
be
with Philip Bump, author of
freaking nuts.
The Aftermath, The Last Days of the Baby Boom and the Future of Power in America. And also with us, Jill Filipovich. Her book is Okay Boomer, Let's Talk, How My Generation Got Left Behind. I'm Celeste Headley, proudly Gen X. This is 1A from WAMU and NPR.
The boomers run Washington.
Start your afternoon with WFAB's All Things Considered for the latest local and international news of the day.
The Charlotte area is bracing for dangerously cold temperatures tonight. That could pose a risk to people without access to heat. Homeless shelters are adding capacity and working to keep people warm.
I'm WFA's Gwendolyn Gordon. Join me for All Things Considered weekdays from 4 to 6:30 p.m.
I think that's an old one.
WFAE.org.
Good morning, it's 11:19, and thanks for tuning in this hour's conversation on 1A. There's a lot more ahead on 90.7 WFAE and WFAE.org. I'm Mike Szymanski. Support for 1A comes from our listeners and Queen's University of Charlotte, presenting the 2022 Charlotte Businesswoman of the Year Award to Diane Murray, President of Consumer and Commercial Banking for Ally. Details at queens.edu/BWOY. Breezy in the region today. Showers out there mainly before about 2 o'clock this afternoon, a high of 56. Clouds tonight, patchy fog developing, a low near 47. Morning fog tomorrow, otherwise mostly cloudy with a high of 63. And on Thursday, mostly cloudy and breezy, a chance of showers topping out at 68.
Yep. F blind people.
Support for NPR comes from this station and from Paychex.
We didn't get
The Paychex
Chick-fil-A.
team of professionals and compliance
Not here.
specialists work to help businesses automate all HR
I know I
functions into
can,
one
but-
platform so that they can instead focus on their business and their employees. And from PBS with Zora Neale Hurston claiming a space from American Experience, a new biography of the influential author and anthropologist. Tonight at 9, 8 Central on PBS. And from the Annie E. Casey Foundation. I'm Celeste Headley. This is 1A. We're talking about the power of baby boomers in America and what happens once they pass on this power, willingly or not. My guests are Philip Bump, author of The Aftermath, The Last Days of the Baby Boom and the Future of Power in America. And because of listener comments, I'm so glad that look at this. Her book is Okay Boomer, Let's Talk, How My Generation Got Left Behind. Jill, I have to go to you first because my fellow Gen Xers are already done talking about baby boomers. Understandably so. Jennifer says, once again, Gen X left out of the conversation. Yep, that tracks. And more in tweets, I'm so glad to hear another show that completely ignores Gen X. We love being the forgotten middle generation between two self-absorbed ones.
Ooh.
Jill, why do people not include Gen X so often?
Because they had no power.
Definitely the Jan Brady of the generations, and it's kind of left behind an old child.
Right.
Exactly. Every time I talk about this topic, I get disgruntled Gen Xers tweeting at me or asking questions, which very on brand for for Gen X to be disgruntled. But I think Gen Xers make a good point. They do absolutely get left out of conversations between generations that are both, I suppose you could say, self-involved, but numerically huge. And I do think that is the big difference, is that, as Philip says, and as his book gets into, the boomers were this historically massive generation that fundamentally altered American history, and then the millennials are the kids. And Gen Xers are this much numerically smaller generation in between. And so they simply, there aren't as many.
Same way
And therefore, they just kind of simply
you could go on Monroe Road and
as much of a full, overwhelming, and intense impact on the country and the
you
culture.
could go to
as
Hawthorne,
boomers
though.
did and as millennials are
I don't know
having.
about
There
that.
has not been a Gen X president, for example. We are hearing a lot from you. Let's take a listen to Lisa in Florida.
Sir Lizard, can I help you? Hello? Okay, I gotta tell you, I gotta preempt that. That's my son, and somehow he's giving people his number. He's in Japan. I do read that. Yeah, go ahead. Are you calling from a school or something?
Yes, I'll take the number off the list.
No, don't take it off the list. You might be wanting some information, but I don't know anything about it. So, can you tell me who you are?
You would have to be. Yes, my name's Russell Galletti, and I'm calling on a recorded line on behalf of CompareTopSchools.com. If he is currently out of the country, it would be ineligible. So if he returns, he could contact us back and find a school for him.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Have a great day.
Bye.
Reliably be credited to the baby boom, right? And the baby boom very quickly took power once they came of age to be able to run for Congress, be able to run for Senate. They very quickly made up an increasing percentage of those institutions of decision making, same at the state level, same at the local level. And so, yeah, that's probably true. I mean, I think that Jill's articulation of the ways in which boomers are divided politically is very astute and very accurate. I do think, though, that there are ways in which conservative and liberal mean different things from the baby boom that tends to make people more critical of them. So, for example, the fact that for younger people, key issues are LGBTQ issues and climate change, which were not really prevalent in liberal conversations in the baby boom era. That when we talk about things like how, as people get older, they try and protect their housing prices, right? Because a lot of people rely on that for their retirement. Those are issues that are sort of conservative if we think about it from a fiscal perspective, but a lot of boomers who wouldn't identify as conservative are worried about making sure their houses are still worth the same amount of money. So there are these ways in which the way we talk about liberal and conservative don't necessarily overlap entirely cleanly onto the baby boom, but it is very much the case that because the baby boom as a cohort got older together, made decisions similarly in many ways, even if you're a Democrat or Republican, you're still buying a house when you can afford a house, that then leads you to try and secure the investments you've made, the decisions you've made, regardless of which end of the political spectrum you're on.
Hardin emails, I am 70 years old and have been a lifelong activist in social justice, women's rights, and environmental causes. As the sun sets on the boomer generation, we should be more involved in making the world a better place before we die. Yes, enjoy your final years, but be a volunteer! Exclamation point. Hardin puts, be a mentor. And Darlene tweets, I am a boomer and I have great faith in young people. We need them in politics. So let's talk a little bit more about politics because, Phil, you write that boomers started to see their power at least challenged by their kids, not just Gen Z, but especially millennials, beginning at the turn of the century. And you point to this one specific moment when the tension actually became clear on the political stage.
My friends and fellow Americans, I am very pleased and very privileged to introduce to you the next Vice President of the United States, Governor Sarah Palin of the great state of Alaska.
Okay, that was John McCain speaking during the 2008 presidential race.
What?
Two reasons. The first is that this really marked a moment when the Republican Party decided that it needed to really very concretely appeal appealed to its more right-wing element of its base, right? It really said, hey, we've got John McCain. He's this long-standing public servant. He was sort of the heir apparent, having come in second in the 2000 primaries. But we understand that our base isn't happy with him. They're not happy with him as a sort of member of the long-standing establishment. And so McCain, his advisors, and they reached out and said, hey, Sarah Palin is someone who the base gets excited about, particularly the religious base. And that was a moment in which they made that decision really concretely for the first time. And that election, the 2008 election, was the cycle in which we really saw this yawning gap between old and young in their presidential preference start to emerge. Before that, yes, there was a gap, but it was really 2008, the election of Barack Obama, that set old against young in a really concrete and novel way. And really, when we see the backlash to that election, the Tea Party, so on and so forth, a lot of that is rooted in generational tension, in tension about where the United States is going and how it's changing, that comes down in many ways to those generational divides.
We're talking to Philip Bump, author of The Aftermath, The Last Days of the Baby Boom and the Future of Power in America, and Jill Filipovich. Her book is Okay Boomer, Let's Talk, How My Generation Got Left Behind. And someone whose handle is I Hate Adulting tweets, I've always balked at the idea young people have messed the country up when boomers have made all the decisions for a while now. There should be age limits on politicians, age and term limits. Jill, I mentioned before that Gen X may never be the president from our generation sort of represent us. And that, I think, is the first time in American history, and historians will probably call it the complaining and correct me. But can you explain why that is? I mean, not only is Gen X small, but does this have anything to do with our Gen X's generational personality or stereotype of being sort of disconnected and cynical and disaffected?
That's an interesting question. I'm not sure that I totally buy into these theories about generational personalities. Kamala Harris is, I believe, technically a baby boomer, but like right at that last end, and so some Gen Xers claim her. I'm not convinced that we're not going to see a Gen X president, just given that millennials have unfortunately largely been shut out of politics, in large part because boomers are refusing to retire. We just got our first millennial senator in Jon Ossoff from Georgia. Millennials are still pretty underrepresented in Congress compared to where boomers were when their cohort was at a similar age as millennials are now. I think we still think of millennials as kids, but the reality is that the oldest of us are in our early 40s. And then it is Gen Xers who are making up that gap between the early 40s millennials and then the boomers who are into their 60s and 70s. So I wouldn't write off the possibility of seeing a Gen X president.
Governor DeSantis is a Gen X.
Right. And I would say, I would not be surprised if that person was a Republican, given the sort of somewhat surprising, I think, conservative bent of Gen Xers.
So we are getting a lot of comments from you. Here's Charles from Ohio.
Will the baby boomers relinquish power? Because if the gerontocracy is any indicator, perhaps they won't. And as an elected official who's about to turn 36, twice the voting age, it baffles me the degree to which I'm still a flag considered a kid within the political system. We have a real problem in this country with a lack of succession planning among political leadership, and it's not serving the majority of our country well.
So let me put...
Joe, should I turn up and go up Hawthorne?
You can.
Yeah, I think it'd be better, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mid-60s. When will this power shift happen?
The first thing I'd say is that we actually see an interesting example of generational relinquishment that just occurred, right? We saw Nancy Pelosi stepping down, turning over power to Hakeem Jeffries as the head of the Democratic caucus in the House, which is not an insignificant move, right? And we saw that trickle down through the leadership of the Democratic Party, that it wasn't just Jeffries, but the other leaders of the Democratic Party stepped aside to let a new generation in. In part, that's because Democrats appeal to younger voters more, and so there's more frustration among Democratic voters than Republican ones because Democratic voters tend to skew younger. The question that really remains unanswered, and is impossible to answer, is what politics looks like moving forward, right? So we don't know, for example, that the Republican Party which after the 2012 election, which they lost, spent a lot of time and energy thinking about, okay, how do we appeal to a more diverse group of Americans? Because clearly we lost twice to Barack Obama. And the response was Donald Trump stepping up and saying, like, or we could double down on immigration and white grievance politics and see success that way. So it's not clear that the Republican Party, though, will continue to do that over the long term as demography continues to catch up to it. We see, for example, the Republican Party does not have the same positions on, say, gay marriage or other issues along, even climate change that's softening on relative to where it was 15, 20 years ago. Parties themselves can change, and so it's sort of hard to predict how the parties will do over the long term when we think about the future of America. In terms of the boomers themselves relinquishing power, part of it's inevitable, right? As you age, you can't work anymore. You have to step down from these positions. And we've already seen, if you look at the average age of Congress over time, we've already seen in the past 2 election cycles it's starting to dip back down. We're starting to see younger people be elected, which I think is the first sign of that relinquishment.
So, Jill, let me ask you the same question, since it's kind of the million-dollar question for this hour on when the baby boomer generation will either relinquish or, as Philip mentions, just not be able to hold power anymore. Do you see this as a slow and gradual change, or will something happen suddenly?
I think it's going to be a slow and gradual change. And as Phil says, we're seeing the change begin. I think what's different about the millennial experience versus the boomer experience is at what age the cohort was able to take power in the first place. And boomers were able to take power much younger. People like Vice President Al Gore were in the Senate in their 30s. There were multiple members of the baby boomer generation who were in Senate seats when they were much younger than the average millennial in those positions. We still only have one millennial senator. And so while we're seeing millennials take, I think, their rightful place in Congress and in the Senate and in state legislatures, we're getting started a bit later than boomers did, and that is because boomers want to step back. And I think we're going to see what we've been seeing, which is that boomers will kind of be this slow tail out of power, largely because this is just the inevitable result of aging, and then to some degree because I do think there are some number of boomers who realize this is important, who realize that it's time to pass the baton, who realize that while their experience and wisdom is incredibly valuable, not just in politics, but also in various institutions and places of work, that they can maintain positions where they can continue to be influential and share that wisdom and experience, while also really passing the reins of power to younger folks and giving them the chance to gain that experience so that they can then lead these institutions and workplaces into the future.
So there was a recent study that showed while Gen X holds almost half of local government positions, most federal positions are held by boomers, and boomers and the silent generation control the purse strings for nearly 80% of political spending. I want to read this comment from Gary, who tweets, "Born in 1957, I benefited greatly from society's investment in boomers. When I attended university in 75 to 79, states funded their universities, providing more than 50% of their budgets. Now that investment is less than 15%, I regret how boomers have thus systematically shafted
Hey, Brad, we're here. Let me know.
Hey, Brad.
Hey, Joey. How you doing?
I'm doing wonderful.
Okay. Inside, boy. Come on. Okay. That's how you ride.
I got a model.
Okay. Yeah, this, man, this rain, there's rain and then there's rain. And this is rain with a capital R.
Oh.
It's not going anywhere. In fact, This is not.
Tolerable.
This
for
is-
your antenna.
Nope, this is not gentle rain. This is.
Uh-oh.
Velcro?
A few minutes ago, it was really nasty.
Oh, really? So where do you want to go?
Let's do Carolina Place Mall.
Oh,
All right.
Joe,
Yeah.
how do I get there?
Same way you came, really.
Really?
You guys live near that one?
Yeah.
So you've been there all the time?
I normally don't go. I don't go shopping and stuff. You know.
You know that mall pretty well, Joey? Or
A little
You know
bit.
South Park better though.
okay, well that's why we're not going to South Park.
If you want to go to a mall I really don't know, you can go to North Lake.
That's true.
You all tell me where to go because
I think I still need to visit North Lake myself.
you want to go to North Lake?
Let's do Carolina Place because I know it better.
Alright.
And I can devise a lesson. We'll probably turn this into a scavenger hunt, really. And we're going to let you use your skills that you have without Dad right there with you. In
Yeah.
fact, I might or might not be with you. I'm not going to tell you.
Alright.
Oh,
Have you done escalators before, Joey?
Yes.
Okay, so they're nothing new to you?
No, I love those, actually.
okay, Joe. Honestly, what's the best way to go back again?
Like Monroe Road and...
Okay. All right, right now I'm on. I think I'm on 7th Street, Central Avenue.
Oh, you want to be on...
Alright, then I know how to go. Like I move backwards, like when I go to the train station.
Yeah.
He's my GPS, but
We'll see how he does. I hear he's pretty good.
Yeah.
oh my gosh, what construction?
What part of Central is this? It's fast.
We're right by Central Piedmont Community College. It's on the left.
Oh, we're on Kings.
Yeah, right now we're on Kings.
Yeah, you just take Randolph Road.
You'll notice it because of the train
Yep.
track.
This is North Kings.
Feel the train tracks?
Yep. Streetcar tracks. And south.
So,
A left on Randolph.
take a left on Randolph. Randolph is 3rd, correct?
Ford.
Well, 4th is only one way, so I can't turn left here. I have to
Oh.
go up there and merge.
Oh.
What crap.
What'd you do?
I forgot Velcro's treats on
That's all right. There'll be a next time.
Yeah.
really.
Next time you see me, I'll be a year older.
When?
Oh,
I turned 40 on Sunday.
oh wow.
It's a biggie. What are you going to do for it?
I haven't fully decided yet.
Oh, I know some great bars.
Yeah, I don't think me and the lady are going to be hitting the bars, but
Nice dinner somewhere. Probably.
Beaver's
Joe and I are
great.
leaving next Tuesday after the eyeball appointment. We're going to see my godfather and his godfather.
Florida.
Right.
Yeah.
He wants to go through Ybor City, which is a big Cuban. It's got a lot of Cuban history to it.
And
He
bars.
wants to eat at a Cuban Chinese restaurant.
Oh god, it's so good.
Ustedes hablan español, ¿no?
You'll see. Joe, you know, but you'll see.
Oh,
It's so good. It's so tasty. They have the best fried pork chunks.
necesito mejorar mi español porque tengo clientes quienes no puedan hablar inglés. Por ejemplo, hoy tendré un cliente quien necesita que yo hable español con él. So I'll have to work on my Spanish.
Well, you're welcome to do it with me. I mean, I do speak fluent Spanish.
Now there you go.
Buddy.
What is this? Hawthorne?
This is Charlottetown, and that Bojangle. This is where Abram used to.
Yeah. It
Could
is.
you do me a favor and indulge me? Could I make a deposit at that bank right there that's coming up on the
Sure,
right?
yeah.
Thank you so very much. If there's no sense to me then.
So I'll tell you what the lesson concept is.
Alright.
You gonna tell me in Spanish?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'll tell Joey later. So, él practicará sus habilidades de localizar diferencias en tiendas. Por ejemplo, yo le digo, localice algo, dime la cuesta de algo, cuántos dólares para algo, él me puede enviar un texto con las informaciones, so no necesitará ahí. So, él necesita practicar independientemente, localizar eso y eso y eso.
Muy interesante, igual que cuando le llevaste a Joey a encontrar a Starbucks, correcto.
Sí.
Hey, how are you? I'm alive. Thank you.
Por ejemplo, yo le podría decir, vaya a Starbucks y envíame un texto con la cuesta. I think cuesta is cost, right?
Costo, el
Yeah.
costo.
Con
no
el
la
costo,
cuesta.
con
El
el
costo.
costo de algo. Y entonces, ok, muy bien, ahora localice una otra tienda y blah, blah, blah. So that sort of thing. So how did I do for explaining that?
Very well. Very, very well. You had el costo, no es otra tienda is sufficient. Another store. But I tell you, it is extremely, muy fácil de entender tu español. Muy fácil.
I've never actually taken a Spanish class.
Oh, wow. Yeah, you learn it quick.
Thank you. Oh, here, brother.
You gonna hold on something?
Yeah, it's a treat.
Oh, that was nice of him.
Thank you.
They've got, right, if you're at line services where I sit, to my left, like all around behind me are some Spanish people and some Asian people. And then in front of me are the English-speaking people.
Spanish, well, I'm not the best person to comment on how hard or easy Spanish is because I have something of a knack for languages.
Oh, wow.
Spanish has challenges for me, but they're different challenges from, say, German or Russian, which I've studied. So,
Oh, wow.
the Spanish, just picking up the vocabulary, I mean, the biggest problem I have is Spanish has too many verb tenses. So does English. But Spanish has more verb tenses.
Yes.
And then, of course, irregular verbs are a problem no matter what language, like hacer.
Yeah, but since you have an eye for language, if you use the infinitive in Spanish, you will be understood.
Yeah.
It's not that you have to be, because that happens to me. I try to speak Italian. My wife is Italian, and I do very well. In fact, when we went to Italy and we got to Trieste, I was the only one of the 10 people, and the only non-Italian that could understand and speak to the
Well, in Italian and Spanish have a high degree of comprehensibility.
Yes.
Yes.
And so does Portuguese.
French not so much, but
No, and another Romance language that everybody always leaves out of the bunch is Romanian.
true. There's a lot of Slavic influence.
Yes.
Did I tell you I did linguistics and languages before I decided to do this?
Oh, wow.
I wanted to be a German professor. I actually went to my doctorate in German studies. I studied linguistics, so this is kind of like my own life.
So you speak fluent German?
I do, much more so than Spanish.
Oh, wow.
Much more so.
I worked in the 80s for and with Germans in the textile industry. Fellow's name was Hans Geilhack, and there was there were a lot of jargon. I never picked up the language. It was very, very difficult. You had to have that.
Well, the problem with Spanish is that Spanish speakers produce more syllables per second than English speakers, so it sounds faster.
Yes.
The rate of information being conveyed is no faster, but the number of syllables coming out of the mouth per second is faster. So Spanish is harder for me to understand than it is to speak. And then, of course, you have the different accents.
Oh, the different, not only accents, but
Dialects.
Is it al autobús or la guagua?
La guagua would work in Cuba, Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, but guagua in Chile is a baby. So, yeah, it's
In Mexico, I would say al autobús.
el autobús. O le dicen el camión también.
What's
Yo
that,
viví,
combi?
sí, yo viví en México
Yeah. Oh, you did, huh?
7 meses y 21 días.
7 months and
21 días.
21 days. Porque eso, precisamente.
Porque no fue una buena experiencia. Era saliendo de Cuba.
Ah, okay.
So, yo era un migrante en México
Oh.
y no podía ir a sus escuelas y era con pánico, no era una cosa, no fue una cosa acogedora.
We're going on Providence Road.
Yes, son.
So did they
You know what we should do if we're going on Providence?
No, son.
We should go and see, we should go all the way down to 51 so we can just roll through our intersection and see how messed up it is.
Oh, so I can show it to him.
Yeah.
What's wrong with that? Is there a section down here?
Well, we talked about that, and I happen to agree with you that the intersection of Baybrook and 51
Oh, that's right.
is
It's messed up.
kamikaze.
Yep. Hey, but downtown Matthews has quite a bit of stuff, and I don't have to cross.
Yeah, I'm gonna go in the first couple of times, and then I'm going to 51. I thought he was going to call Hope and go last night to watch Brady lose that game.
Yeah, Hope said she texted you about that.
Yeah, we were texting about that last night.
Oh, you were?
Yeah.
Hope's good people.
Yeah. We were texting about that game. Those are games we call thank God we didn't see that games.
Brady has lost his touch. His timing, his accuracy. Of course, he didn't have any of the people.
Oh, if he retires now, he's got his games back.
Yeah, but you know what? So we
Giselle's gonna take half of it.
No, Giselle had more money than him.
Yeah.
The problem with that is that I think he was heavily invested in crypto.
Hang on 1 second, I'm gonna send it quickly.
But yeah, and people take it wrong, and even with me, when I'm speaking to another person in Spanish, I find out what are your origins, so I know how to communicate with you. Because I speak Castilian. I mean, I can speak one common language that would carry through the whole
So
thing.
you actually know how to use vosotros. Most people.
Vosotros.
I love vosotros. Hey, vosotros sois locos.
I don't know, it's weird because English dialects, like, people understand each other more than they do in other languages.
Yeah, dedicated.
Yeah, I wish that the rest of the Spanish-speaking world actually used the vosotros form because, I mean, it's there for a reason.
Right.
It actually conveys useful information. I mean, I don't want to say ustedes to my children. Hey, vosotros necesitáis
Una sopa en el culo.
But yeah, I like Castilian Spanish. Of course, I don't hear it that often.
No, you won't hear it here.
Hey there, Mr. Hayden. We're back on. I've had to change the lesson location because of the rain. So I'm doing this this mid-afternoon lesson. This is my 11:30. I'm doing that at Carolina Place Mall. So would you be able to pick me up from there? Hey, yeah. I don't know how far Carolina Place is from that third client. Maybe it's close. Yes. Okay. So should we plan on 2 o'clock, 2:15? Okay, 2 o'clock it is. And I know that the Ubers usually pick up from the Dillard's entrance, but I can meet you outside the food court. That's where the STS usually drops off, is at the food court. Okay, sounds like a plan. All right, looking forward to seeing you.
I have to go and pick up something around Pilgrim
Oh, well, that third client is way over there near UNCC.
well, I'm heading up on 77 then. What's that exit, Joe? The one where...
I'm not I don't know the exit number. Sunset Road.
Sunset Road, so I would have been going in that direction anyway. So
I appreciate that.
just remember, and you know, and next time I'll bring the SUV so we have more room for the upright.
Now, you guys are going to be out of town next Tuesday.
Right. We're going to be gone the whole week.
So you'll be back. I guess we'll be looking at the first week of February, at January 30th, 31st, 1st, 2nd, 3rd. You'll be back that week.
Yeah. Hey, Joe.
Yeah.
I'm going the way I know now. Listen, I want you to get back to your Monday routine because according to you, you're supposed to be going back to work what day?
The 7th.
What's the matter, man?
It's a little tight. Left his hardest schedule in the world.
What do you mean on my Monday routine?
Yeah, for Brad and for doctor's appointments and stuff like that. If indeed they call you back to work.
So if you guys will be back on January 30th, we can do an appointment that Monday.
Okay.
Alright.
I have a question for you, Brad. I've seen, and I'm going to call it a pocket for lack of a better definition. But around, is it Costco, Joe?
Is it what?
Is it Costco? Isn't that where they're at Chick-fil-A and
Yeah.
yeah. Right there is a lot of blind people. When I say a lot, in comparison to other places. Are you aware of that, or am
No, and I don't know why it is. Could be coincidence. No, I have no idea.
I bet it was important.
Well, two options for everything. There's like 2 grocery stores. There's at least 2 banks. There could be more. There's a ton of restaurants. There's 2 buses.
Yeah. I feel Joe's need, but we have to wait. Joe's need is ours. I mean, Mom and I are in the 60s. The house is paid for. We like it. It's comfortable. You know, and I understand he would be better off in an urban setting. But
Yes. I mean, Charlotte is not a great urban environment. Few sidewalks, the buses don't cover the whole city. So not everywhere in Charlotte would be a great place for a blind person to live. So it could be that some of those folks are living there because they have access to transportation, whereas if they lived out on if they lived in the, what is it called, Oakdale, if they lived in, say, the Oakdale neighborhood or Silverwood, they would, even though it's in the city.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah,
Oakdale, that's way out. That's by the university area.
Oh, that's Northwest. Eric used to live there, Dad.
Oakdale is northwest.
Oh, Eric, okay.
But even the university area is not well covered by the buses.
I have like 6 of them.
No. I mean, if you go far enough northeast, you're gonna get out. You're gonna get out of bus range.
Yep.
Because I have clients who are not covered by STX and going to see one this afternoon.
Oh, wow.
So no, the university. In fact, I've had multiple clients in the university city area who are not covered by STX. So yeah, city's not really.
Like this is Carmel Road. There's no local bus service that services Carmel
Carmel
Road.
Road is extremely busy. I mean, there's no reason not to have bus stops on Carmel Road. No, I have a client on Carmel Road who couldn't get a bus even if he wanted one.
Yep.
And I can't get to him with STS, so I have to do other things.
Yep.
When Tony was back in Japan now, first went, he sent us back some video in Tokyo where the sidewalk, in the center of the sidewalk, they had I would say it was a 12 by 12 truncated slab that followed the whole area.
Probably divided the walking path from the bike lane.
Yeah, so
Something like that.
so it was specially for blind people, so they just followed that.
I've never heard good things about accessibility in Japan. Not very good things about the cost of living in Japan, but
Well, Tony is furnished the car and not an apartment, it's a closet.
right.
But, you know, for what he's doing. How about Europe? How about Germany and stuff like that? How are they?
Mass transit in Europe is excellent.
Yep.
Go anywhere in Europe I wanted to, pretty much. Not so in the United States. We're way behind on mass transit and accessibility.
It's such a big country that you can't, you know, people say the trains. I was in Spain back in the 90s and I got on that bullet train, or they call it AVE, Alta Velocidad, Alta Velocidad Española. And that thing is great.
Oh, we're about to go by where that brewery is going to be that I wanted to go to.
Yeah, this is the place I'll point it out when we get there. That Joey has been trying to get to the drag, but he can't figure out how to get across.
Across 51, that might be the problem.
Yeah.
I'll have to see what the intersection looks like.
We're going to go past it because we went the other way.
I think you have a time constraint, so I don't want to impose on you. I would like to show you where the intersection is.
I'd love to see it. My hard stop is going to be at 2 because my transportation will take me out to the TC.
And do you mind? I mean, we're talking about a 4-minute deviation here.
of a, I hope you have some fun with this, Joey. This isn't meant to be a hard lesson. This is a, the weather really sucked and we had to go to plan B.
Yeah.
So, we're going to have a little fun. I'm going to give you some objectives involved. And I'll make sure you have my cell number, but I'm not really going to walk around with you. I'm not going to watch you because I don't need to.
Alright.
So I'm going to give you some objectives involved. I'm going to tell you to go places and find me certain pieces of information. Come back to me, or not come back to me. I want you to text me and tell me this is what I found out.
Alright.
So where you guys get eating into that
What's
food? Where is the lunch in that program?
I think the food court is going to present some challenges.
It's big and open and there are tables all over the place.
6 million restaurants, but the rule that I'm going to impose is when it comes to using assistance, there are 2 things you're not allowed to do. Alright? Just to make it more challenging.
Alright.
You are allowed to ask for directions, right?
Alright.
You are allowed to stop and verify with people. Hey, is this what you want? What you are not allowed to do, you may not walk to a human guide with somebody the whole way, or even part of the way. Don't use human guide at all.
Alright.
And you may not walk with them the whole way. If they offer to walk with you, you have to tell them, no, you can say whatever you want. I'm under training and I need to find it myself. I'm practicing finding it myself. Don't let them walk with you across the ball the whole way because that will defeat the purpose.
Alright.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Alright. Besides, you're pretty good at this.
Okay. Over here to the right
Yes.
is the brewery that's not completed yet that Joey wants to get to.
Yes.
Right to your right.
So we're coming up on Baybrook and 51.
No, we're coming up on 51 and Carmel.
Which might be safer than 51 in Baybrook. Who knows?
If you could go across Baybrook, right there in front of the open air bridge, which is a block west,
Yeah.
is where he would get off to go to the brewery because they have great sidewalks and everything else.
Well, the challenge is, what is the intersection? How is the traffic light at the intersection? Because what makes, say, Independence hard to cross, for example, is it's so wide that any traffic light you have isn't giving you enough time to get across, and you have to factor in how do people actually behave on Independence.
They don't.
Right, exactly. So this intersection of Baybrook and 51, right? Is it a four-way? Like, is it Baybrook?
It's four-way.
Okay. So
it's four-way 51 that he would have to go across to get. Are you okay, Velcro?
yeah, he's fine. We'll spring him if we get there. But so he has to cross 51, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So what is the traffic control there? Is it a stoplight? Is it a stop sign?
It is a stoplight and it's what do you call those things?
It has an APS, but I don't know how good it is.
It has an APS.
So I would have to play with the intersection. It would take me a little bit to play. I mean, I'd have to just come out and play with it. What's at that intersection? Because I might do that on my own when I have some free time.
It's simply apartments, the entrance to the neighborhood, and to the left of the intersection, or east of the intersection, is a nursery and an office building.
So there's no need to be crossing it today because there's nothing to go to.
No.
Yeah.
I just want to see the whole thing. This is fine, but some of the time I'm doing 40 miles an hour, and some of the times you get people going through in the stupid cell phone.
Oh yeah.
70.
Yeah.
Not uncommon.
I mean, that's the potential risk with any intersection. What I would need to figure out, what I need to spend time figuring out is 51 in Baybrook, is there anything special about it that makes it worse? Now, I don't like crossing 51 because it's 51.
Yeah.
I have a client who lives near 51 in Providence.
that's tame compared to this. Because it can get congested and it could, you know. This will not get congested, so people will not.
Okay. Baybrook is coming up. The stop for the bus that he needs to get to is right here. Baybrook is right here. It has a
On the side of Baybrook, that, like on your side
this,
of Baybrook?
on your right or west, there's a sidewalk. Okay.
Not one to the east.
What bus route is it, Joey?
51.
In view is right here, which is now there's another possibility, and that is to go down in the other direction east, and there is Elm in 51. But I haven't even noticed if there is any kind of
It does stop there going towards Matthews.
I will schedule some time to come out on my own and look at it, walk around it, and see what I think.
That's my street right there. There's that stop sign.
I'm going to, all right, this is our street. There are no sidewalks, but it's a quiet street. This corner house, Willow Run and Radnor, es tu casa. Okay, so this is what Joey would be doing to get where he needs to go. Do we need to let Bill out from out?
No,
Okay.
he just has a lot of energy.
If you ever want to let him out,
Joey will come out here, and of course he'll get on the other side of the road.
Across from the house?
Across this road right here, he will get right here, and normally I have him walking so where the people in traffic can see him.
So he will be walking on
He will be walking.
that side?
Yes, he will be walking on Radnor. There is no light or nothing in here.
Mm-hmm.
This is
Bevington.
Bevington. He will get, there's a sidewalk here on Bevington. Caswell's got a 4-way stop sign. There's a school up there. So he will walk around across here. Okay. Nice sidewalk. Then once he gets to the corner of Bevington and Baybrook, it would be best for him to go across the truncated dome and get on the west side of Bevington, because that will bring him.
Baybrook or Bevington?
This is Baybrook. I'm sorry, son. Baybrook. He knows my neighborhood, so he's correct. Here's a road that he would have to cross. I'm sorry, baby. This is the entrance to the apartments that he would have to cross. And right here is 51. And I'm going to put this down so you can hear the traffic flow. But there is a one of those lights that you push the button. And how loud they got it set up, I have no idea.
I'll just have to come play with it. So, how many lanes is that? Is that 4 lanes wide or?
It is 4-lane wide.
Okay, that's not bad.
Good. Now both sides have sidewalks.
Mm-hmm. So
facility. I don't care if I was. So Joey, the
Crossing 51.
crossing 51, right here, there's truncated domes and everything.
Okay, now you just did something weird. You drove.
It's as far as it needs to go.
Okay, so you would cross 51 and then walk along 51.
Right.
Okay.
So a block
But
less than
it
block.
needs to be on this side of 51.
Exactly.
Okay, nice.
That's the issue. It needs to be on this side.
Out to this intersection. I walk it myself. But the big thing I need to figure out, I found it on this, but I haven't figured out yet, is the relationship between your hearing aids, Joey, and your ability to evaluate traffic.
Here's the fire station, just so you know. We already went past one of the bus stops. Yes, and we are getting a new one, hopefully before we go to Florida.
New hearing aid?
A new company.
With some more channels, some of the stuff you told me he needed to, that it would be better if he got it.
Here's Carmel Road. You ever been to the Piper Glen Shopping Center?
No?
I mean, it's called the Piper Glen Death Trap because that parking lot, ooh.
Speed through, whip around.
And it's,
Okay, right. He would have to come to right here. Then walk back. Follow the curve and that brewery would be right there.
So on this side,
Yes.
except it's not built yet.
no.
No, it's not good. This is one of those lights, like for the kids from Catholic High to cross. That could be another option. He could stay on that thing all the way out there and then cross.
Yeah.
So I decided to walk to the brewery. See, this is this town being confusing. Here's Johnston Road, and then Park Road is closer to the mall.
Now, Brad was telling you there's all kinds of connection on Johnston Road, correct? Buses?
Johnston.
No, I never heard him say that.
No, okay, well, maybe, you know,
Maybe a different road.
I imagine so.
So thanks for what?
What's the bus for Johnston Road, Joe? Is it 24?
No, that's, 24 is Woodlawn, but it also goes on to Arrowwood and Nations Ford.
What about Johnston? What's the one for Johnston?
Well, 43 runs along it, but there's not really one for Johnston Road.
Okay.
There's 19S and 19C, and 19C will bring you all the way over to Carolina Place, and that runs along Park Road. And 19S goes to South Park, but I don't know how it gets there. Probably Park Road.
And now we're officially behind.
How was that?
Me shifting lanes.
So I thought I would just to keep it fun and easy, and leave a little time to have a little lunch. Since we talked about that, is give you when we get there, I'll give you objective number 1. Go find out that information. Then objective number 2, find out that information. And then for objective number 3 is I'll have you route from there to wherever your dad and I pick out for lunch. It'll be a surprise for you because I don't know what's going to be.
Alright.
You do that. You tell me, you get there, you tell me, this is what I did, this is what I struggled with, or no, this was easy. That way, little independent practice for you.
Alright.
I'm going to leave it to you whether stairs or escalators. Just don't use the elevator. That's too easy.
Actually, I do not like elevators.
No? Okay, good.
Because elevators have all the buttons and all the alarms and whatnot.
Oh, the alarm's going to be fun.
Hey, call the police. Yeah, what is it?
So I just got a little notification here. You'll find this interesting. There's a lot more language self-study tools out there than there used to be, which is good. So I'm using LanguagePod, which is one of the best of the self-study platforms out there. Last night before I went to bed, I took an assessment of my Spanish just to see what I could do, and it tested me on grammar and vocabulary and reading, writing, and listening. The listening is what I struggled the hardest with because it sounds like.
Oh yeah.
But they rated me to start studying at level 5 advanced, which is they want me to start with level 5 advanced Mexican Spanish.
Mexican Spanish.
I don't know what all they offer at level, but level 5 is their most advanced level.
Well, my son is struggling in Japan now. He almost passed level 3. And of course, the writing is the kicker there. He's taking level 3 again at the end of the summer.
What is he studying for? Like Ritz or what is
I don't know that. It's a test given by the state because then he will not be eligible to work with a Japanese company until he at least reaches level 4.
Yeah, that's probably corresponding to like A1, A2, B1, B2. That frame of reference is B2 level is usually what they want if you're going to hold a job in a foreign country.
Yeah.
He wants to stay there, doesn't he?
I don't think, I'm not even going to talk about it because it's a very touchy subject. The guy's going to be, his next birthday is 30. He still hasn't done anything with his life. And,
Yeah, he has.
go all the way, no bullshit. Go all the way out there. Oh, man, slow down.
I love languages. They're what I studied. They're what I enjoy. I thought I was going to spend my life teaching a language, but
What made you change?
God had other plans. I couldn't find a job in German studies. Not a lot of demand for it. Too many graduates.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm using my language skills to teach other things.
Any German customers?
I wish.
Uh-huh.
Not a lot of demand for it. I guess the big languages in Charlotte, Spanish, of course, is a huge one. We have a huge Spanish-speaking population. I'm trying to think of what would come next.
It's probably it might be a Asian language.
Yeah, like maybe Vietnamese.
Thai. There are a lot of Southeast Asia. I mean, judging by if you go to Lion Services, there are a lot of them.
You know if they're like Vietnamese or what they are?
There are a lot of people from Laos. There's some people from Thailand. Those are the two I know of. could also be.
Excuse me, Joe. At the, where do you want me to drop you off?
Let's just drop at the central food court there.
Okay.
Because if we were taking SCS, that's where they drop.
Okay.
So we'll just go in. I think the entrance is near the McAllister's Deli. Just where you have. I don't know if McAllister's will be visible from here, but if I remember correctly, we walk into the food court where we end up near McAllister's. That's just where that door happens.
What mall has the biggest food court in town?
Who?
He said, what mall is the biggest food court in town?
See,
Yeah.
my hearing is failing to the point where I heard Walmart. I heard a statement, not a question. Walmart has the biggest food court in town. That's
No.
what I heard. I know that's not what you said, but that's what I heard.
You don't want to say because it's not true.
I'm probably wrong about this, but isn't escuchar both to listen and to hear, or are there separate words?
Escuchar
Yeah.
is to listen.
But to hear, like,
Oír is to hear.
oh, oír,
Oír. Oír. O-I-R. Oír.
oír.
Oír. Okay. Yo los voy a dejar a ustedes enfrente
Okay.
por el perro y después voy a ir a estacionar el auto.
Okay.
Now that was Spanish.
He
If
said,
it would have been speaking, if I would have been talking the way we talking, voy a parquear el carro.
a little Spanglish.
No, that wasn't Spanglish. That's just the way we speak in the Caribbean.
Necesito pagar mi renta. Antes yo loncho.
Oh God, I hate that. Do you know that I honestly been here 57 years and I do not speak Spanglish, and I refuse because the Spanish language is so rich that it has tons.